Greetings, YouTube, Internet, Twitter, and wherever else you might be catching this. Ginger here again with another episode of Fighting the Void, here where we try to talk about whatever it is we can think of to help push back against the general nihilism and dependency on, especially in this episode, statism that seems to be pervading everywhere in the world today. And with me, as per usual, is my lovely co-host, Crystal.
Hello. I'm here.
Appropriately dressed because our guest today is none other than the mistress of the collarbone, the owner of Prudes, baker of pies, queen of libertarian Twitter herself, the redheaded libertarian.
Hi, guys.
How you doing?
Thanks for having me.
Oh, I mean, it is really awesome to have you. Thanks for coming on.
Our pleasure.
So, amongst your other titles, you're also a writer for the Federalist. I assume that's still the case?
I think so. Yeah.
You haven't pissed them off or anything yet?
No, I've
That's
written
good.
for them. Yeah. I only write when they ask me to write. So, yeah, I'm a writer for the Federalist, but
Awesome.
I have more, like, I'm a neuromuscular therapist first and foremost, and that's just something I do for clout, I guess.
Well, hey, it works for me just fine. In fact, while we're on the topic, what are a couple of pieces that you've written for the Federalist?
Pretty much I did my Robert Kraft piece, and that's really all that I've done.
Okay.
I've written other ones. They haven't been submitted, but yeah, that's
on the way.
That's my claim to fame.
Okay. I think your claim to fame is probably your, again, owning of Prudes,
Mm-hmm.
and your follower account on Twitter.
Yeah. Let's be honest. The whole collarbone is kind of the thing heard around Twitter and the libertarian circle.
Yeah.
This is true.
I remember the day that happened too. It was, I had 1,000 followers before I showed my whole face, because I wanted to make sure. I'm like, okay, I want to make sure I get followers for the right reasons.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So I started off, I think I just had just a random picture of something, and I got about 1,000 followers. So I showed half my face, like a half face photo up. And then after that, I did like a third of my face, and it just kept, until I was like, okay, I'm just going to post a picture, shoulders up.
Uh-huh.
And I had a collarbone, and somebody said, you need to save those pictures for your husband. And
I remember that. That was hilarious.
I was like, oh my God. So Collarbone to Own the Prudes was born. That's my baby. Mm-hmm.
Yes, it is. I think
is.
it's become an irrevocable part of the brand at this point.
It is, and it has exploded throughout libertarian Twitter with the women of Liberty Twitter. Like every Liberty Twitter girl, we do this. It's Collarbone to Own the Prudes. Every single one of them.
It's just fun. It's just fun.
It is. It's fun. It's a way for all of us to kind of, kind of speak in one voice about just being able to be women and, be ourselves.
Yeah. Absolutely. Now, on the subject of libertarianism,
Mm-hmm.
now, obviously, it covers a bit of a broad scope, I would say.
Oh, yes.
There's no. I have a hard time pointing to one set of, lack of a better term, doctrines or principles that actually says, okay, that is libertarianism.
Yes.
So I noticed you have this on a pinned tweet on your account, but how would you define libertarianism?
So to pull from my pinned tweet, libertarianism, it's the belief in property rights and non-aggression, self-ownership, accountability, and personal responsibility, and then free market economics. And that really sums it up. And from there, there's a lot of division. There's division on abortion. There's division on the borders.
Mm-hmm.
But I believe any healthy ideology needs to have that debate.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where, Puritanism gets on my nerves there because.
Oh, goodness. Yes.
Yeah,
libertarian purity police.
Yes, exactly. So there's a spectrum of libertarianism from anarchy to constitutionalism. And that pretty much is just no state intervention to, like I say, lawful state intervention.
Right.
And it's all based in the principles of liberty, which is subjective to an extent. And that's where people have their division.
And that's where it's important to have the debates and everything and have
have
legit discussions.
Yes. I mean, it's not like like I said, the principles are non-aggression, self-ownership, accountability, personal responsibility, property rights, and it's all based in those. And when it comes to like free market economics is also a big part of libertarianism. So it's important to gatekeep when it comes to somebody who's like, well, I'm a libertarian, but Bernie Sanders isn't that bad. That's where it's important to gatekeep. It's not healthy to gatekeep when it comes to, for instance, the border debate, because there is libertarian views on both sides of that
Right.
are in principle.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Mm-hmm.
Plus, one could argue that the whole point and part of being a libertarian and valuing liberty is it's part of liberty to be able to disagree and have discussions and to not have to fully agree 100% on everything. And yet, it almost seems like if you don't agree 100% with certain libertarians, you're not a real libertarian, which is kind of ironic if you consider the fact that it's like, aren't you for liberty? Like liberty, think for yourself, talk your own opinions, be free to speak your own opinions.
Exactly. They're gatekeeping the wrong parts of libertarianism. They're gatekeeping the parts that need the free interaction.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it seems to divide very much along either social views, whether you're socially conservative or socially progressive, or it does have to do with what role you think government does have to play.
Yeah.
Because there is definitely, there, like you just said, there's a spectrum of that within libertarianism from government, who needs any government at all, to, no, basically to, like you said, constitutionalism. Yes, there does need to be some sort of federal government with some sort of structure to it, but we really should be pretty small.
Yes, exactly. I am a Ron Paul libertarian, so I'm a minarchist. And I believe, as the founders did, that the purpose of government is to provide checks and balances per the police, the military, and the justice system, and that's it. That's literally it. That's as big as government needs to get, and that's in order to effectively enforce the Constitution.
Now, when we're talking about government in this context,
yes,
are you applying that to any government at all, period, or strictly like federal government?
I would do federal government with that.
Okay.
The states have their own separate constitutions. They're protected under 10A, so that's a completely different conversation.
Yep. But still roughly applying the same sort of principles and everything, at least.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I think that's one of the things where I see a lot of discussions happening on libertarian Twitter. Well, I don't know if those distinctions are being taken into account, because I got a feeling like a lot of the ones who will go, that you're not a real libertarian, when people are talking about something they're happy to see at like a municipal level.
Yeah.
But would agree that it doesn't belong at all on the federal level, sort of thing.
Yes, and that's what helps with the freedom. Like, for instance, I like to look at, say, gay marriage. All right. So that became legal 50 different times. Now, the reason that's good is, in order to ban it now, they would need to repeal it 50 separate times. If they were to make this legal on a federal level, it would be one law, and it could be wiped out with one authoritarian president who has a pen.
Actually, on gay marriage, it was actually it was pretty much a Supreme Court ruling.
Yeah, but I mean, I'm just saying the separate states.
Well, the separate states decided to go along with the Supreme Court ruling. It wasn't most of them actually. I don't know about most of them, but a number of them actually still have on their constitutions that thou shalt not. But
that's interesting, yeah. But they
actually, every time, I think maybe all but 2 times, it was actually put before the voters.
Yep.
They all voted it down every single time, all but maybe 1 or 2 times.
Oh wow.
Yeah. It was not passed by every state at all. It was a Supreme Court ruling where they just said, Supreme Court says so.
Well, that's interesting, but that's kind of like as a reference point, you could have one authoritarian dictator one time that could abolish everything if you have it on a federal level.
Yeah, but I would agree that is the way it should go. That it should be like, you know what, you want this sort of thing, pass and say, because at least as well as I do, what does the Constitution say about things that the Constitution doesn't say anything about?
Yep, exactly. The Ninth Amendment covers all that extra stuff that isn't articulated.
Yeah. Where the Constitution said, if we don't say anything about it, y'all states, y'all figure it out.
Exactly. Yep. And the states do, and that's why there's states that are more libertarian, and there's states that are more conservative, and there's states that are more democratic, like my hellhole here in Massachusetts. Yeah.
Oh goodness. Oh yeah, that's right. You're up there in New England. I'm sorry.
Oh, God. It is. Yeah, there's protests on the Common about something different every single day. Yep.
Well, at least it's entertaining.
Yeah.
It's ample fodder for Twitter. You got to give it that.
Yeah. I always have something interesting to talk about with my commie state.
Now, go ahead, Crystal.
Real quick, in the live chat, we have two things. One, we have the lovely presence of both Lucas and the New Wildlife Ministries, which, Ginger, isn't that the guest we had just on?
That's great, yeah.
Yeah, he's in chat. Hello, thank you for joining us. And Josie, Lucas has a very lighthearted question for you. Which is worse, being called not a real libertarian or being called a statist?
Being called not a real libertarian bothers me more than being called a statist, because it's usually grounded in something that they are misinterpreting. Whereas statist is just it's like, you're dumb,
Yeah.
You can't even take the insult seriously.
I want to debate them and tell them how I am, and they're misunderstood. Like, I want to challenge that immediately and tell them all the ways that they're wrong.
Mm-hmm.
But status, I'm just like, ignore you.
Yep. Ignore, block, whatever. You're not worth time.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly.
But one thing that comes up all the time, gets brought up with libertarians frequently, is is the roads thing, and this came to mind a little bit during the you're talking about the difference between municipalities and like federal government. And lately I've noticed the response on libertarian Twitter is, that's Bush League, and boom, dismiss. So, which I can understand. I understand that impulse. I'm a Catholic who sometimes wanders into apologetic discussions, and yes, I get tired of having the same conversation over and over too. But for the sake of those who don't know, explain roads.
So when you say, I don't like, taxation is theft.
Right.
It's always, when it comes, taxation is theft. And the first response is always, but who would build the roads? Do you know what the roads would look like without taxation? And it's almost as if private roads don't exist. Toll roads don't exist. Like, there's no other way to do it. The roads, that's it. It's like, well, what did we do before income tax? There were roads before income tax. And there's just 25 million different reasons that we can still build the roads without taxation, and it's just the thing that we hear all the time.
It is. It is. And I will say this, where I live, put it this way, taxation ain't doing a good job with my roads. And
yes,
it kind of winds up getting used as an excuse to raise taxes. Like, we have to raise taxes.
Oh, we don't have enough.
Because we have to raise taxes to fix my roads.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not too much of a roads person, but while I was in Michigan, that's like the one place that would get me to actually mutter the whole taxation and stuff, to like forget because the roads are awful. There's a meme of like America driving on a road versus Michigan, and it's like America, you're like, when you're sober, you're avoiding the potholes, and when you're drunk, you're like driving straight through them. Oh wait, no, I'm getting them. Whatever. Point is, Michigan has a bunch of potholes.
Michigan's roads suck.
Yeah, there's a lot of jokes about Massachusetts. It'd be like what Massachusetts looks like, and it'll be like 2 Dunkin' Donuts and a CVS across the street from each other, and then like a giant pothole because of the salting the roads. Like
Yep.
it's from the snow that destroys the roads. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah. We've got you know the movie Cars.
Yes.
When Lightning McQueen first rolls into Radiator Springs and
Mhm.
just destroys half the town.
Yep.
That's kind of about. There are certain spots in Michigan where the roads look not too different than that.
It's exactly how it feels.
yeah, and I just remember it now. It was America, and like the roads have no potholes. And when you're driving sober, you're driving straight, and when you're driving drunk, you're swerving, and the road's clear, like there's no potholes or anything. Well, Michigan, it's a road full of potholes. When you're sober, you're swerving to avoid potholes, but when you're drunk, you just drive straight through the potholes.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Just
Exactly.
enjoy the ride. So essentially, the answer is, well, it kind of sounds like the answer is essentially we'll figure it out.
We will survive without the taxes to build the roads is the answer.
Yeah, I think the one thing I could think of is that maybe there wouldn't had we never done taxes for the roads, there probably wouldn't be an interstate system, which
True.
would have kept Radiator Springs on the map.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Which and obviously one can argue the utility of that one way or another, and of course one could certainly argue against the propriety of having the federal government build a bunch of roads across the entire country.
Mm-hmm.
I would say too, like without because like the taxes when it comes to roads is just ridiculous too. But I also wouldn't want the solution to just simply be toll roads either. Because like, could you imagine how much that would spike up your traveling for like just like even work or even just like taking a vacation and doing a road trip like that?
Well, it's a
That
good question, but presumably that would be offset significantly by a drop in taxes, especially your gas taxes, because gas taxes make up a huge portion of the cost at the pump.
true, but that would still be a like big buildup of like from using
True,
toll roads.
true. Although if the price at the pump is 80 cents a gallon as opposed to 280,
That
I
that
don't think it would drop that much, but
that's the only reason why I bring it up because when we were in Texas this during the beginning of the year, like a lot of the roads where we were toll roads, and it was kind of like, man, like how much does this like stack up when you're just going from here to there? Like,
it can, that's for sure. But now, Josie, we kind of hinted, we talked about a couple of politicians here and there. Are there any out there right now that you would actually not just begrudgingly vote for because better than the other jackhole, but actually that you'd eagerly vote for?
Oh yeah. I mean, if I lived in their states,
Okay.
right now my choices are like Liz Warren and Ed Markey.
I'm
Also,
sorry.
she's part of the squad. I can't remember her name.
Oh, geez.
Yeah.
Is it the Presley? Is it the Presley one?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. She's up here. So yeah, but yeah, Rand Paul, Thomas Massey, Mike Lee, Dan Crenshaw, Justin Amash, Nick Fuentes. Those are all politicians I would run to vote for because I like them. They're very constitutional. Yep.
Now, you brought up Amash. Obviously, he's been in the news a little bit lately.
Yep.
What's your take on that whole situation with the whole, I think Trump should be at peace. You know what?
I mean,
they're kicking him out of the Freedom Caucus and then him leaving the GOP. What's your take on all of that?
I think there's a lot more to it than we hear about. I think you need to believe half of what you hear, essentially.
Okay.
That's kind of my rule of thumb with everything. Believe half of what you hear. But above all, I think it was an excellent decision because he isn't a Republican. He's a libertarian.
Right.
And that libertarians have 2 options. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
We are not going to take over the Libertarian Party. Okay. The Libertarian Party is centrist. It has is just a catch-all essentially for people right now, and it's moved away from the principles of free market economics, and it's moved away from the principles of self-ownership and property rights. It's moved away from everything that libertarian stands for.
Are you referring to the Republican Party right now, or
Libertarian Party?
Oh, you are referring to the. Okay, I want to make sure.
Yes. So the Libertarian Party is so far away from libertarian principles. Bill Weld and Gary Johnson made it into a centrist party to pull interest in, which is great, but they kind of pulled interest in based on I'm out of your bedroom and out of your pocketbook, so they took the two
right.
ideals from fiscally conservative and socially liberal and put them in, which libertarian is, but it's so much more than that. But everything more than that, the people that they pulled in aren't attracted to it. So I'm saying that the Libertarian Party is probably not the way that libertarians are going to take over the world and leave you alone. It's probably going to be either by all becoming independents and starting an independent, because there is a lot of people who are independents. So it'd be that, or it'd be taking over the Republican Party. As we see the socialists are taking over the Democratic Party, I can see the libertarians taking over the Republican Party. It would be a much slower process because we're not radical, but those are the two options. And Justin Amash became an independent. So I think if he led that movement, we all become more independents just by name with liberty principles like he did.
I think going the independent route is probably the better, is the more realistic, because the Ron Paul has kind of tried mustering a resistance within the Republican Party for a couple of decades now.
Yep.
Yeah, and he wasn't even, he was barely allowed to come out and play or anything in the presidential debates, and with a grave injustice, because way back when Obama was running for his first term, and the economy was melting down. He was the only politician on either side of the aisle who could have said, "Told you so." I've been calling it for 20 years, people. You told me I was crazy.
Yes.
But, and it's like, and here we are. And of course, then he would have been the one going, all Bush is putting TARP together. He would have got, so you want to get us out of this mess by doing the same thing that got us into it.
Yes.
How does that make sense?
He has reason, but there are just deeper powers working.
Yeah, much more. I don't see, especially since the Tea Party tried to take over the Republican Party and essentially just ran out of steam. For lack of a better term, it
was painted by the media as radicals. It was painted by the media the way that they had painted socialists when they were running against Hillary Clinton. Now socialism is all the rage, and it's the more socialist, the better. And look at Kamala Harris and Cory Booker,
Now Bernie's the bad guy because he's not socialist enough.
Exactly. Yep. That's how fast it went, and they are going to not learn again, and they are going to lose again.
I certainly hope so. I certainly hope so. But I don't see a takeover of the Republican Party happening. I think the establishment is too well established, and like you said, people on the right are not as prone to radicalism as people on the left. Don't get me wrong. There's radicals on the right, but their numbers are far, far fewer.
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. And with taking over the independent party, or I don't even know, it's not like a party, but taking over the independent, Bernie Sanders is an independent. So there is going to be people in there that don't share liberty values, and
that's really true.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's still very early into all of this. It's just, I believe Justin Amash is going to lead the Libertarian Party in the way that it needs to go. But like I said, it won't be the big L Libertarian Party. It'll be the small L Libertarian Party.
Right.
Which ironically looks like an I.
Now, what do you think, though, with this whole impeach Trump thing that kind of kicked this all off?
Well, what's hard about that is he was kind of always a never Trumper. So it was hard to, because I'm not a make decisions. I I listen to everybody. I don't rule anything out and be like, nope, never going to do this. Nope, never, never, never. If it's not socialism, which obviously is insane. But, when it comes to that sort of thing, I'm like, whoa, well, let's listen first and then make our decisions. Or I feel like we're just as bad as the things that we preach against. So it was really hard for me to take Never Trumpers too seriously. So anytime he came out with something, I kind of was just like, okay, whatever, I adore him and I might disagree with him on things, but that's okay. So
fair enough.
The Never Trumper part, I just let people have their thing with that. That's radical to me.
Yeah.
Just a little bit.
I would agree. The whole never this guy, unless there is something just, obvious, obviously horrible, shall we say.
Yeah, nothing came up in the Mueller report that was damning.
Right. And I would say
if anybody investigated, something that long, they gotta find something damning. I mean,
exactly.
I feel like they'd find something damning on me and I don't even know what it would be, type of, thing. Like
they probably found they might have found something damning on me in the Mueller report as much as they were investigating. I don't know.
I know. Same. It feels like, okay, they gotta have found something, right?
Well, exactly. And that's kind of the way I look at it. It's I certainly haven't read the whole thing. Amash says he hasn't, and I'm sure he has.
Yeah. Oh, I trust him.
But
he said there were things in there, and I trust him. I just don't think they were told you so, stuff. I think just
exactly. And if there were, we would certainly have heard about it, and the left would have been trotting it all over the dang place. It's so. Exactly. It's like, you know what? Yep, there's a lot of somewhat, kind of sketchy stuff. A lot of him saying, "I want this to happen," but it never does. So
yeah,
okay.
There's sketchy stuff with every single politician. You just
exactly.
If you're gonna get into that kind of power, you can't. You got to be sketchy. You got to believe you and only you can rule the freest, the greatest country in the world. You got to be a narcissist. You got to be sketchy. You got to be smart.
Yeah.
That's that, and the whole I'm not going to file articles of impeachment. Well, why not? If you really think you should be impeached, and especially since, hey, you know what, we can call the Dems out on their BS while we're at it.
Yeah,
do it.
Yeah, politics and being a politician is one of those categories where you can't come out of it not being sketchy or fishy. Mostly because even if you don't want to be that way, when you go into it, everyone around you is playing so many games. You have to play the game too.
And nobody gets better. Nobody gets more principled the longer they're there.
Yeah. And real quick, in the cat's new wildlife ministry, his name is escaping me right now. My memory's bad. Huh?
Greg.
Okay. Sorry, Greg. Greg said, I don't agree with Amash about impeachment, but I understand why he left the DOP. And then we have Lucas bringing up the point, when you want to save forests from forest fires, you gotta burn the forest, which he is both right and wrong.
Yeah.
Both right and wrong.
Yeah, I mean, kind of to put a button on that. It's like I don't know what his deal was with the whole impeach Trump thing, but I also hate the way that Trump responded. I hate the way the Freedom Caucus suddenly, we're going to censure you. You're not allowed to have an opinion we don't like.
Mm-hmm.
You can't play any reindeer games.
Mm-hmm.
No.
I almost wonder about the Freedom Caucus if he told them what he was going to do, and they're like, okay, well, this is kind of a Republican, a group of Freedom Republicans, so maybe you should exit. So I wonder if there was more to that than we heard.
Possibly. There's probably some behind the scenes stuff there, maybe.
Yeah. I wonder if there was just semantics and stuff like that. So that, but Donald Trump did not respond appropriately to that.
Not even a little bit.
He needs somebody to tell him just when to keep his mouth shut.
Yes. Somebody will actually listen to it. I don't know who that person is.
Yep.
If there's one thing he doesn't do is listen to advice. He seems to listen to certain flattery, but not sound advice.
Yes.
Yeah. He needs to learn to stop putting his foot in his mouth, because that's where a lot of his issues
Yeah.
Come
But
on.
yeah.
This whole squad thing and Nancy Pelosi, all he had to do was keep his mouth shut, and now he's just turned the whole thing on him. You know, it's just keep your mouth shut, dude.
Yeah. That's exactly what I do. Is like, oh, they're fighting. All right, somebody
yeah.
get me a beer, somebody, please. I'm gonna watch this.
Yeah. He needs someone to like stand in the background, but facing him. So whenever he starts saying something, they can just be like.
He needs an earpiece. Somebody just be like, shut
No,
up,
no.
shut up, shut up, shut up.
You know what he needs? He needs to respond to, because I'm sure Melania tries to coach him a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
He needs to respond to that the same way that Ralph Northam responded to his wife, which he gave him that look like, "Don't you dare moonwalk on the stage right now! Don't you dare do it, you moron!"
Mm-hmm.
That he needs to respond to those sorts of things.
Yes.
It said, he's like, screw it, I'm going to moonwalk. He would have too. If that was Trump in that house, he would have like, hey, you know what? I'm the best moonwalker ever. Frankly, Michael ain't got nothing on me. This is what you tell me. I don't know. But anywho, so I noticed also you've been kind of you've talked about the Democratic field a little bit,
mm-hmm.
and who you would prefer to get the nomination over there. Not that that's like who you want to see in the White House, but who you prefer to see the nomination.
There's got to be a nomination. I've said this a million times.
Yes, you have.
Like, no, I'm not going to vote for anybody. Freaking Adam Kokesh is like, you can't make me vote for someone. I'm like, shut up, dude. Stop misrepresenting me. But yeah, it was essentially somebody has to get the nomination. Okay? Yeah. One of those 20 morons on stage has to get the nomination. One of them is going to get the nomination. Now, would we like it to be somebody who's safe, somebody who brings the military-industrial complex, like forces us to talk about that?
Mm-hmm.
Somebody who's seems like she would reach across the aisle, So I'm like, all right, well, if somebody has to get this, this is not identitarianism. This is somebody has to do this.
Right.
No matter how much we wish it away, it's got to happen. There's got to be a Democrat and there's got to be a Republican. Okay. So I'm like, all right, well, Tulsi Gabbard is the safest possible option. She's the safest option. There is less war with Tulsi Gabbard. There is, and honestly, I don't ever want to see her in the White House. I'd love to see her as Secretary of State or Secretary of Defense. Perfect. That is a perfect position for a non-interventionist. So I'd like to see her. Or your other option is, okay, would you like to see somebody dangerous, somebody who said that they would use an executive order to repeal 2A? Like, right. There are dangerous people running. Mm-hmm. So do we want the safe option to run against the person who's going to win 2020? Let's face mm-hmm. it.
Yep.
Or do we want somebody dangerous who is popular, who has a chance of something, the stars aligning and her getting it? Mm-hmm. So yes, I will endorse Tulsi Gabbard. Absolutely. I believe anybody who believes that the military-industrial complex is a big deal, and we should talk about that. If they have a way to vote in the primaries to vote for her, do it. Get her on that stage. Get the mm-hmm. vote away from Kamala Harris, who is dangerous.
Yeah, Kamala Harris is like full on 100% dangerous and crazy. Yes. Tulsi, she's about 89% crazy.
Yeah. So she's the least crazy of the people who have to. We have to pick one. We got to pick one. Who are we gonna pick? We can virtue signal to the moon and back, but that's not going to change facts. And I'm not gonna pander to anybody and act like there's not going to be a Democratic nominee because I'm so principled that I can't talk about reality.
Yeah, that really bothered me a lot when I saw that, because even before I got interested in politics, growing up, and whenever I'd see this stuff and I'd have questions that my family would talk to me about so I can start thinking and understanding, they always told me, you're not always gonna like the options, but you have to pick the lesser of two evils.
Yes.
And so
that's the way that it is.
Yeah. So to see the fact that everyone was just having such a visceral reaction and giving you grief for you saying that you should pick a nominee that you would want the most, not necessarily want to vote for in the end, but want the most out of the
Who do you
select.
want to challenge Donald Trump?
Yeah, who
Like,
you
what
want
would
to
be the most
challenge him.
interesting?
Yeah, and it was also especially bothersome because if you think about it, how many people want Trump to win too? A lot of them don't necessarily want Trump either. So it's like, well, you don't want to pick any of these because you don't want to vote Democrat, which is fine. You don't have to vote, but you have to understand someone's going to go up against a Republican.
Yeah.
But you don't want to pick any of them. You probably don't want to pick Trump or any of the Republicans. Who are you going to pick then? Because those are your two options. Because it's going to be even harder for a third party to win.
Yes, there's not going to be a third party anytime soon. Probably not anytime in the next 20 years. It's not going to.
Unfortunately, you're right, because it's going to take.
It's still
for
working its way through
Yep.
getting into the debates. Like
For
there's
it,
different rules.
yeah. For it to be a significant, for there to be a significant third party, there has to be a couple of big names that basically start it, and there needs to be a lot of money behind it, like right out of the gate, if it's going to be something serious in the near future.
And this is
you can build it from the ground up.
Yes.
But it takes more time.
Yes, exactly. It's time consuming, but it is pragmatic. And this is how it's going to happen, but it's not going to happen in a year and a half.
Right. Did we lose you?
Oh, can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I'm here.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. All it was dead quiet. Something is amiss.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's I don't know. It's interesting because I'm thinking about this just because Ross Perot just died recently.
Yeah.
And I'm old enough to remember back when he was running as actually a viable third party candidate.
And I didn't even really the only time.
Yeah, and he wasn't even like a big name on the national stage. Nobody knew who he was before he ran for president. Yeah. But he had a crap load of money, and he had a message that people wanted to hear. And what's interesting, I didn't know this, but I heard a little bit more detail about it. As they were talking about it on some of the talk shows after he died, and they were talking about how he actually got probably he was polling much higher than probably he expected, and he kind of made up kind of a sketchy reason to get out of it.
Yeah.
When he was actually like, I might have a chance to win this thing.
Yeah.
And then he got back in at the last minute, and still, even with that rather screwy campaign, managed to get 19% of the vote.
That's incredible.
I mean, that is huge for a third party candidate, and launched the Reform Party, which was worth talking about for at least a few years afterwards. It got a little weird there towards the end and started just catching. He kind of became what the Libertarian Party is now, just this weird catch-all for people that didn't want to be Democrats or Republicans.
Yes.
And then before it fizzled out.
So there's a market for people who don't want to be Democrats and Republicans. They're kind of going to, and I see it up here a lot. Republicans are all in the closet. If you're Republican, nobody's vocal about it.
Right.
You're all Democrats, but there's people who try to separate themselves from the Democratic Party and try to call themselves independents. And most of them are actually Democrats, but they don't like the socialist leanings of the Democrat Party. They don't like the way that it's going in that direction. So they'll be like, I am a proud independent, when really, they're voting Democrat. But there are independents up here. And there is a pining to get out of the two major parties to break the duopoly.
It does seem to be growing just about everywhere. And the fact that, again, this guy that nobody had heard of before he ran, Ross Perot, managed to get 19% of the vote 25 years ago.
Yeah.
That's how long we've been dissatisfied with this two-party system. How long we've just been dying for a viable for a viable alternative. Now, I think in some ways that might be harder now than it was then, because the two sides have done such a fantastic job of demonizing the other.
Yep.
And the Democrats have run so far left that it's like well, if I vote for the third party guy, even if you're not a person who buys the whole,
worry, like if a bunch of us vote for the third party, what if the bad people win? Because it's like they're the
exactly,
good guys, they're the bad guys. So
exactly.
if you vote for the neutral party, what if the bad guys win? And so they use this term
Yep.
of, I always speak up because the silent person always works on the side of the oppressor, or whatever, however it goes. So people are like, all right, well, I might as well, like, you see libertarians, well, we might as well vote for Donald Trump, because honestly, the Democrats are the lesser, or are the more of the two evils. Donald Trump is the lesser of the two evils. So we see that on our side.
Yeah.
Yep.
And to ever break out of this duopoly, it's gonna be really hard because it's been going on for years. And fun fact, from the very beginning, George Washington hoped and didn't want there to be a party system like this. He wanted no parties.
Mm-hmm.
Period. And then this came about, and that's the thing I've noticed when it comes to like patterns or systems and whatnot that aren't necessarily good. It's much harder to break past or break out of a bad system than it is. It it's easy to slip up in a good system and accidentally go down the wrong path because good intentions, whatever, you know the saying. But it's really especially hard to get out of a bad one. It's like when you're, like just in your day-to-day life, and you have like a bad habit of like staying up too late or whatever. If you have a good sleep schedule, it's easy to like accidentally slip out of it. But when you're not on a regular schedule, it is hard to get back on track and to be able to function well. So it's gonna take a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And nobody wants to surrender any power.
Exactly. Yeah. And nobody wants to take the chance of, like you said, the bad guy winning.
Yeah.
And, I almost think that to truly break out of the two-party system, especially those on the right who are dissatisfied with things, are going to have to accept that we're going to have to take a few losses.
Yeah.
To get there, which sucks because honestly, I think we're so close to. I legitimately think we are close to the cliff now. A couple of losses could just push us there, but at the same time, at the rate we're going, we're still going to get there. It is just going to be a little slower.
I think 2018 was really telling. The House of Representatives flips 90% of the time. That will flip after the change of a regime change, for lack of a better term. So that's normal. But just a minute, my daughter just came in. Hey, can you go? Can you go back into there with your sisters? Good job. Okay, good night. All right. So with the lack of a better term, but the Senate is what is really telling is if the Senate switches with the House at the same time, that says you're going down. Like, this is not good because the Senate rarely switches, and they gained seats.
Yeah,
they didn't lose seats; they gained seats. They made a bigger divide there, and that says a lot more about how the nation feels about the socialist movement. But like I say, the left doesn't learn; they double down. They're going to keep doing this and keep pushing toward the left, keep pushing as far left as they can, and they're gonna lose.
I certainly hope so. I really don't want to see Kamala or frankly any of those whack jobs in office, and in the next year and a half. That would be awful.
Yep.
Yeah. Exactly. Now, we're getting close to the hour. So just to change the pace a little bit there, you are also, in addition to being queen of libertarian Twitter, you are also, I don't know if you're the queen, but you're a contributor to Pie Twitter.
Yes.
Okay. What are what would be like a couple of your favorite pies to bake?
My favorite pie in the world. I'm an award-winning pie baker, by the way.
Oh, nice.
Yes. I have 2 first place ribbons and a 3rd place ribbon. So my favorite pie to bake is bourbon pecan pie.
Ooh.
and it is delicious. And I do up my pecans all separately, and I spice them, and I use cumin in them, and that's kind of the little secret to give it a kick.
Huh.
Yep. And I also like making meringues, and I like to mix it up for meringues. Like I'll do a chocolate meringue or a lemon meringue or a pumpkin meringue, because meringue is very versatile. And a lot of times you can sweeten it with mocha and add like cute little flecks in it. So those are my favorite pies to bake. I actually really like one crust pies more than two crust pies. So yeah, and in the summer it's hard because I don't like turning my oven on.
Right.
So I'll try to do no bake pudding pie or something in that regard. Because it's too hot. Pie generally
way
runs
too
November to
freaking hot.
April. Yep.
And I imagine being in Massachusetts, you have the same issues with humidity that we do.
Oh gosh, it's been so gross. You just walk outside and you're just wet from the humidity. Yes, it's
Hate it. Hate it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, same here.
Yeah.
Now, since you're the queen of pies, and I, and probably some other viewers, as a young woman who hasn't had much experience with baking pies, do you have any tips for young new pie makers?
Yes,
when it comes to making
absolutely. Sure. So I would say I don't sweeten my pie crusts. A lot of people do. So I would stay away from sugaring your pie crust. Some people do that but your pie is going to be the way it is when you're making a sweet pie. I always do a savory crust, and I like to do half of Crisco and half of butter when I do my pie crust, as opposed to some people just do butter, some people just do Crisco. It's important to use cold butter and cold Crisco, or it gets sticky. So that's kind of a beginner's tip on that, on the pie, because you got to have an excellent pie crust, or your pie filling is kind of generic, but the pie crust has to accent the pie filling, and a savory always will. And I actually use the same exact pie crust for like a blueberry pie that I would with a chicken pot pie. Same versatile pie crust. Yeah. And it's delicious. Always, if you're using nuts in your pie, always pre-season your nuts and bake them off, rinse them, soak them, do everything. Take really good care of them. Take care of your nuts.
Good advice. I don't care who you are.
Yeah. So those would be my big recommendations for pie.
Nice.
Okay.
Okay, now shifting tone again. Top 5 books to read.
Top 5 books to read.
Yep, we're gonna go through some stuff rapid fire here.
So. Oh yeah, let's do it. Top 5 books. I wrote them down. Economics in One Lesson. Henry Hazlitt, I believe.
Good book.
Basic Economics by Thomas Sowell. Yes, and Economics in One Lesson you can usually find for free on the internet.
Nice.
Yes, you can just plug it in and it's gonna come up somewhere for free. Somebody somewhere has America's best interest at heart by doing that. End the Fed by Ron Paul. Ethics of Liberty by Murray Rothbard. And I always add this one, Anthem by Ayn Rand, because I read that in 8th grade and it gave me a lifelong aversion to collectivism. So I will always recommend that book. If I don't know if it was part of my reading criteria then. I don't know if it's part of everybody's reading criteria. But if you haven't read that, just read it.
All right.
Oh, and for a bonus, the Federalist Papers. The Federalist Papers.
Yeah.
They're written by Madison, Hamilton, and Jay, and they wrote under Publius. So if you can find those, I'd recommend reading those. They kind of give more insight to the Constitution.
Yep. Might I also add the Anti-Federalist Papers?
Yes, Anti-Federalist as well. Definitely.
You get the whole argument there.
Yes.
Because one of the things I actually a couple of years ago I listened to the Federalist Papers while I was while I was at my job and everything, and I kind of noticed like a lot of the as they're arguing against anti-federalist positions, I'm like, what the anti-federalists were worried about, that's happened. I was like, dang it all.
Yeah, they were right.
They didn't have a couple of points there that maybe you should have listened to a little bit more. But
I believe Sam Adams was the most popular anti-federalist.
Okay.
Madison, Hamilton, and Jay were, well, Jay wasn't really that popular. He only wrote like 3 of the Federalist Papers.
Mhm.
Hamilton wrote most of them.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And okay, shifting tone again.
Yeah, keep going. Let's do this.
You play the ukulele.
I do.
Why?
I'm still a beginner. I still know a few songs, but I actually have it.
Uh-huh.
Right here.
What made you pick up the ukulele of all things?
I like the way it sounds.
Fair.
It's a really pretty sound to it. And it's very simple to learn how to play.
Okay.
You know, a lot of songs just have 4 or 5 notes in them.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just, I don't know. It seemed like the least, my life is complicated enough as it is. It just seemed like the least complicated possible instrument. And it's just nice to entertain that part of your mind sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, awesome. Did you just recently start picking it up, or?
Yeah, I picked it up around, well, I guess I picked it up around Christmas.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, but then I actually got a swollen finger after doing it. So I put it down for like 2 months and then picked it back up again recently and haven't had that problem again. So I'm kind of overdoing it.
Built up a little tolerance too.
Yeah, I'm a neuromuscular therapist, so I need my hands to be healthy.
That seems like it would be important for the job.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I picked it up again, but I really limit myself how much I practice it now.
Very good. Very good. Now, was there any particular inspiration other than just you like the sound, or?
No, and my uncle plays it.
Okay.
Yeah, I come from a very musical family. Everybody used to play something. And I used to sing when I was younger, and I was a better singer definitely than I am now. I'm not a very good singer now, but when I was younger, I was. And so that was just always my thing. I'm like, no, I sing. I don't play instruments.
Right.
And then as I got older and my voice changed, it happens after you have kids. Actually, with women, your voice gets deeper. And I don't know, I just couldn't sing anymore. So I was like, all right, well, I guess I need some kind of outlet for my musicalness. So I picked up an instrument, and it was a good choice. I really enjoy it.
Oh, well, awesome.
Yeah.
Do you regularly post any songs that you do, or?
I do. I post them on Instagram, and sometimes I'll put them on Twitter for people just to hear and to see. And it's nice I like to be versatile on my Twitter page and have more than just. I'm not going to lecture you about policy all day.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a human with emotions and feelings, and I have
a life outside of freaking politics.
And I like to treat you guys like you're my friends, because there's no reason you shouldn't be. So I'm going to share with you my life just the way I share with my friends.
Very cool.
Mm-hmm.
Now let's see here. Oh, what else do we have here? Before we take off. Let's see here. Corporate censorship. Nah, that's going to take too long. Let's see. How about favorite president?
Favorite president?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, my favorite president is absolutely Coolidge.
I could have called it.
He's most of our favorite presidents, and I can tell you why. There's a million different reasons that I like him, but a few of them, he was born on a farm, but he always opposed farm subsidies. So it wasn't like any personal interest that made him want to support or be against them.
Mm-hmm.
He was for strong borders, but he was actually really critical of the anti-Japanese immigration law that they had, and he was very vocal about that to Congress. He didn't have a lot of friends in Congress due to things like that. He vetoed almost everything that came to his desk. They actually called him the do-nothing president, which I actually think he did a lot, like when it comes to libertarianism. But he deregulated the markets, and he lowered the debt. He actually left office with less debt than he came into. He was a private sector non-interventionist. Let me see. I wrote down a few things. It's like I'm definitely going to forget some of this. He had a surplus, and he used that surplus to lower taxes, and he shrunk the government, and he just had substantial economic growth and a large private sector. I mean, he was really a libertarian's dream come true. What's ironic is I live in Massachusetts, where he was from, and I'm kind of near Northampton. And Northampton has the Coolidge Park and the Coolidge Cafe and the Coolidge Theater. And Northampton is actually one of the most liberal cities
I'm gonna say.
in the world.
I was
Like,
gonna say, other than like California, Massachusetts is like
they actually
where the socialism lives.
Yes, it really is. Smith College is in Northampton. So they're like little San Francisco. They are really, really liberal there, but they have all this stuff named after Calvin Coolidge. But nobody's trying to like repeal it or name it after Barack Obama or anything like that. They're just leaving it alone, which is kind of cool. But yeah, that's
kind of funny.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if we could just like reincarnate him, distill him, and put him in a bottle, and
Yeah,
put
I
a little clone of Coolidge in a glass case, be like breaking case of national debt, and just
exactly.
That could be useful. Now, before we go, what podcast would you recommend that people listen to if they want to learn more about either economics, politics?
I am going to endorse the 3 other podcasts that I've been on. What's Happening with Nico and Shane.
Oh, one.
Yep. The Brian Nichols Show with Brian Nichols. And Death to Tyrants with Buck Rebel.
I really can't argue with the name of his podcast, so it must be good stuff.
Yes, they are. They're great, and the people who run them are the salt of the earth. I have nothing but great things to say about them.
Awesome, and we're definitely fans of Nico and Shane. In fact, Crystal was at their wedding.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
It was so lovely. It was so lovely. And real quick, Ginger, before you sign us off, 2 more things from the live chat. Both from Lucas. He's been extra talkative today. First, he brought up the fact that he went to school with Ross Perot's grandkids.
Oh, no kidding.
Wow. That's so cool.
Yeah, I think they were even in band together.
Oh, wow.
Cool.
Sure. I can't remember fully. And he also said, Josie, that if you ever say you don't have a good voice again, he will fight you on it.
It used to be better. I swear it did. Now it's like, now I'm like sharp, and yeah, it's not what it used to be, but that's okay. I still sing anyway because whatever.
As one should always.
Yeah.
I sing in the car when there's no one else around. Because that way I don't hurt anyone.
Same here.
I mean, honestly, sometimes I'll listen to myself sing. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm awful.
Yeah, it's hard to listen to yourself sing.
Yeah, it's like, oh, that sounded really bad. But then again, only Steve Perry and that little Filipino dude can do Steve Perry. So
yes, exactly.
But all right, well, hey, Josie, thanks a lot for coming on.
Thank you so much for having me.
Oh yeah, it's been a blast. So everyone out there, thanks for tuning in, and we're going to keep you posted on who we'll be having next. And until next week, we'll keep fighting the good fight. Oh, and just to remind, I'm past my normal sign-off phrase, but that's okay because it's my podcast. I'll do what I want. Remember, Hangouts on Air is going away August 1st, so there might be a little hiccup after that, but I'm working on it and doing some investigation earlier. I might have a solution going, but I'm going to have to do some more research and learning, and so long as life stays calm, I'll be able to get it figured out by then. But again, until next week, keep fighting the good fight.